Hello, these are our Chapter 4, Section 1 notes in our Government or Civics textbook. Chapter 4, Section 1 begins on page 110, and it is about the Bill of Rights. So many of us have heard that phrase before, the Bill of Rights. What really is it? The Bill of Rights was the first 10 amendments to the US Constitution. So an amendment was a change or an update, something added to the Constitution. If you remember, the Constitution became our government, the blueprint for our current government, in 1787. 4 years go by before all 10 amendments are added to the US Constitution, called our Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights includes lots of personal freedoms, and probably the most famous and the one that most Americans know the most about is the First Amendment. So all 10 amendments contain different rights that we hold as Americans. And the First Amendment has quite a few rights in it. It includes the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of petition. And all of those freedoms together embody or make what many Americans think of as their freedoms. Each one of those has different parts to it. The freedom of religion includes the separation of church and state. It means that people are free to worship in whatever way they want, as long as they don't deny other people from worshiping in ways they want. And it means the government cannot tell us as Americans, as individuals, that we have to follow one religion or another. So the First Amendment is probably the most famous, but there are 9 other amendments also. And the Second Amendment has to do with the right to bear arms or own weapons. And there is a lot of debate about the Second Amendment, but the words in the Constitution say, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the safety and security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Third Amendment had to do with British soldiers staying in people's homes in the colonies before the Revolution. So it says that soldiers cannot be forced to stay in our homes. That obviously does not happen much anymore, but it was an important amendment at the time. The Fourth and Fifth Amendments both have to do with rights of the accused. If someone or the government says you committed a crime, you still have many rights because of the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, including a right to the due process of law and a right against self-incrimination in the Fifth Amendment. And the Fourth Amendment includes search and seizure, that the government has to have a warrant before it would come and look through my house. The Fifth Amendment also includes eminent domain. It does give government the ability to take private property for public use, but it says that the government has to pay you if it takes your property. The Sixth and Seventh Amendments also have to do with if you're accused of a crime and how our courts should work. And the Eighth Amendment includes no unusual or cruel punishments. So it also has to do with the government punishing us in a criminal case or limits on what the government can do to its citizens. The last 2 amendments that make up the 10 Bill of Rights amendments are the 9th and the 10th. And the 9th and 10th amendments basically guarantee that all rights not mentioned specifically in the Constitution are still our rights, either as individuals or as people who live in the states that make up the United States. So we will talk more about all 10 amendments to the Constitution, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution that make up the Bill of Rights. But be sure you read this chapter closely and think about all 10 amendments. And we will certainly have questions on work going forward and a Constitution test at the end of the semester that will ask specifically about the different amendments. The very beginning of the chapter, to go back just a little bit, discusses that when the Constitution was first passed, some people thought that the Constitution was good enough, that it contained enough rights for Americans. But some of the other framers, like Thomas Jefferson and many others, felt like the Constitution did not do enough to protect our rights. And so that was why many people called for the first 10 amendments or changes or updates to our Constitution. And that happened very quickly within 4 years when the Bill of Rights is added to the US Constitution. Thanks, and we'll see you next time for the Chapter 4, Section 2 notes.